just look at what economists usually mean when they talk about efficiency in the sense of what makes society better off. And we tend to do that with the supply and demand model. So here's a supply and demand model. And what I've drawn here is we've got a supply curve and a demand curve, and I've drawn a price with a monopoly. A monopoly is going to raise prices above the competitive price. This would be the approximate price in perfect competition. But in a monopoly, they're going to raise the prices up approximately up to here. And that's because it's more profitable. The profit is everything above the cost curve and below the price. So under a monopoly, this whole area here would be the profit. And if it was perfect competition, let's just go back here and erase all of this lines here for monopoly. Under perfect competition, the price would be set by the market here. This would be our price. So this is price in perfect competition. And the profit would be this area here. It would be the area underneath the price curve and above the supply curve. And the supply curve is equal to the cost curve, the marginal cost. So, so this is profit here. And up here, this is the profit that consumers get. This is their what's usually called consumer surplus. This is the amount of sort of money saved that consumers didn't have to pay, that they would have been willing to pay. Because remember, the demand curve is the willingness and ability to pay curve. So if this is the diamonds market, then some people would be willing to pay a very high price for diamonds, and if they only had to pay $1,000 for a diamond instead of $2,000, they earn sort of a consumer profit or a consumer surplus. So this area up here is consumer surplus. This is what people be willing to pay but didn't have to, because they have to pay the going price. And this area here above the cost curve and below the price curve, this is the profit, because it costs this much to produce each unit, and they got paid this much up here for this quantity. So the goal of efficiency is typically going to be to increase the quantity. If you have a monopoly, the problem of monopoly, where you're charging a price that's too high, that's up here, the problem is that the quantity of the monopoly is too small, and to increase efficiency, you want to increase the quantity, and in order to do that, you'll have to reduce the price as well. And anything you do to increase the quantity is going to increase this area of social surplus here. So what is efficient is to maximize this area of profit plus consumer surplus. Now, Milton Friedman and Frobe, to some extent, tend to say that the goal of society should be to focus on the profit triangle here, but that's not standard economics. Standard economics is to maximize the social surplus. That is what efficiency is in most standard economics. There's some other definitions of efficiency, but this is by far the most common one. Now, Frobe has another view. He gives this diagram, and this is basically the same thing I just showed you, except instead of having it a triangular social surplus, we've got a rectangular social surplus. But we've got a price line that divides the consumer surplus and the profit. And altogether, this is our social surplus. And the top line of the box here, this is the WAP. This is basically the demand curve. And the bottom line here, just like with the supply and demand graph, this is basically your supply curve. This is the the cost per unit or the marginal cost. So again, to increase efficiency, the main way you're going to do it is by increasing quantity. Anything you do to reduce costs is going to tend to mean that the profit maximizing price also goes down. That will increase quantity. Similarly, if you increase the willingness and ability to pay, as you can see on our supply and demand graph over here, anything we do on here to increase our demand, that's going to tend to increase the quantity. And similarly, anything we do to increase the supply, that's going to increase the quantity. And so a very good proxy for figuring out what does maximize social surplus is just whatever is going to increase the quantity. The one big caveat is if there is something that has costs, something that's a bad, for example, pollution is a bad. We don't want to increase the quantity of pollution produced. And if you're looking at something like coal, which produces a good, the electricity, as well as a bad, the pollution, it gets a little more complicated. But we're going to just focus in this chapter on goods. So things like liver transplants and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and look at liver transplants then. Here's a market with 8 people, and they each want a liver transplant, and each one's willing to pay a different amount. The marginal cost is 1.5 million. Al's willing to pay 7, Bob 6, and so on. Gay is willing to pay 1 million. Hal doesn't have any money, so he's not willing to pay anything because he has no ability to pay. So the profit maximizing price in this market is going to be $5 million, and you'll make 10.5 million in profit by selling 3 liver transplants, 1 to Al, 1 to Bob, and 1 to Kat. So here's your profit. You sell 3 times each person is getting you a profit of 3.5 million, and that's a total of 10.5 million. But you can do better if you price discriminate. You can make more profit. And here's an example. If you can only charge 2 prices, if you can only figure out 2 different prices to charge, then this is going to be your profit maximizing price discrimination scenario. You're going to charge 6 million to Al and Bob and make 9 million in profit from them. Plus, you'll charge 5 million to anybody else that can come, and only 2 people can afford that, Kat and Deb, and you'll make 5 million from them. So $14 million total. This is more profitable than 10.5. And you're serving a third person. You're saving another life. So this is more efficient and it's more profitable. And you can even do better than that if you do perfect price discrimination, where you're charging every single person their own special price. And so here you're absorbing all of the consumer surplus, which is great for profits, plus you're saving more lives. Now you're able to save 6 people's lives. Plus, if you're a nonprofit, you've got lots of profits here that you can use to heal other people, including Gay and Hal, in a case like that. So, real hospitals do sometimes have some sliding fee scale where they adjust the price according to what they perceive to be people's ability to pay. But they also do a perverse thing where they charge people without insurance, this top number. These are the numbers paid that are charged to people with no insurance at actual hospitals. And for people that have insurance, if you're in network, which is almost all insurance nowadays is paid to in-network providers, then these are the average prices that are paid in-network. So ironically, they are charging a higher price to people without insurance, who presumably have, on average, lower ability to pay than people that have insurance, who typically have higher income. So let's go back to the price discrimination scenario. In this case, we're price discriminating according to not ability to pay, but according to sort of bargaining power. And if Al, Bob, and Kat, if they have insurance, and so they have really good bargaining power, they'll pay close to the marginal cost for the medical procedures. And so the The liver transplant operation will make zero profit on them. And that will mean that they'll have to lower prices to profit on everybody else. So that's basically because, it's almost as if these people were gone. And if you just are focusing on profiting from these four, your profit maximizing price is $3 million and you make $3 million of profit. So $1.5 million from Deb and Ella, and we can't serve these people profitably if there's one price. So this still is better than a scenario where there's no price discrimination, because with no price discrimination, they were just going to be profitable to serve Al, Bob, and Cat. And now we can still save 2 more lives, but it's not as good as as the reverse price discrimination scheme, where these people have insurance, and so they have good bargaining power. Because now we save an additional life. We can also save Faye's life if these 3 have it, and we make more profit than in this scenario here. So same kind of scenario where there's 3 people with insurance, but the profit is a lot smaller in this scenario than in this scenario, and with higher profit in a nonprofit scenario, then it's much easier to serve the people like Gay and Hal and all the other people that maybe can't even pay the marginal cost of liver transplants. So this is more efficient than this scenario here, because this is a price discrimination system where the price that is charged is correlated with their ability to pay. And that is always going to be at least as efficient, if not more efficient, and it's going to be more profitable for the organization than a scenario without a correlation between the prices that are charged and ability to pay. So another couple examples that would be similar would be, say, the senior coffee at McDonald's. Here, senior citizens tend to have less ability to pay than younger people. And so by charging them a lower price, McDonald's is able to expand the amount of coffee they sell to old people a lot, since they are more elastic in their demand. And for higher income people, because we are less elastic in our demand, we can afford to pay a little bit higher price. It doesn't change how much coffee we buy very much. And so that's going to be an efficient price discrimination scheme. Whereas a price discrimination scheme like charging 30% more to handicapped people, to disabled folks, than for able-bodied people, that's inefficient, because disabled people have a lot lower income on average than able-bodied people. And so they're going to have to reduce their repairs, and it's going to mean they're going to have a lot less transportation ability than for able-bodied people, who will then get to pay perversely a lower price in a competitive market because of price discriminating against the disabled people. So that's inefficient, because the price discrimination scheme is based on bargaining power and information, and not on ability to pay. And so that ends up being inefficient, and in the sense that a lower quantity of car repairs will be done in that case than if it was even just one price for everybody. That would be more efficient in that case. Definitely price discrimination schemes where there is a correlation between prices and ability to pay are more efficient than the reverse. And in some cases, it's actually better to not price discriminate, such as in the case of charging disabled people 30% more.